Hello, my name is Kari Bradley. I'm the General Manager of Hunger Mountain Co-op, and thank you so much for joining me for this recorded presentation of our 2020 Impact Report. I really appreciate you taking time to listen to this and check out some information about the co-op and how we did over the fiscal year 2020, which runs from July 2019 through this past June. One of the reasons we're doing this this way this year is because our annual meeting will be held remote because of the pandemic. So it's a little less interactive, and we wanted to provide this opportunity to go more in depth. And at the end of this presentation, I will describe some additional opportunities for more information and to be more interactive, just in an effort to be as transparent and engaging as possible with our co-op members. So, get started. This slide is our mission statement. Hunger Mountain Cooperative exists to create and sustain a vibrant community of healthy individuals, sustainable local food systems, and thriving cooperative commerce. This is what we call the Global Ends Policy, and it was established by the Co-op Council back in 2009, and it goes along with these other 4 statements. And this is what we call the ends policies. It describes the long-term desired outcomes for the cooperative. And it's our job as a staff to work on accomplishing these things over time. And as we do that, we are thinking about how to measure progress and then report out at least annually to our members about that progress. And that's what this report is all about. So speaking of measurements, we have established a system of measuring our success, and for this report I've divided it up into several categories. We've got some of our key stakeholders, of course, the member owners, employees, and broader community. Other values that are core central to the co-op are good food and health and our local food system, financial returns, cooperation itself, and of course environmental sustainability. So I'm now going to present some information about each of these. First up is our member owners. We measure our success with member owners in a number of different ways. First of all, just the straight number of co-op member owners, and you can see in the graph here that there's been steady growth, and we ended the fiscal year with 9,638 co-op member owners. This is the equivalent of about 1 in 6 residents in Washington County. A really high level of support. Another way we measure how we're doing in terms of membership is we conduct an annual satisfaction survey. And in this past survey that was done just before the pandemic started in February, we got, again, pretty high scores with the basic satisfaction questions, and the one that we often look at is how likely are you to recommend the co-op to a friend or a colleague, with on a 1 to 5 scale, 5 being highly likely. The average was 4.57, and this has been fairly consistent over the years. In terms of benefits that we offer to our member owners, an important one is discounts. And you can see in this graph that there's been growth in the amount of dollars that are being offered to member owners in the form of discounts. A little less than 19,000 in fiscal 2020. And that actually was a slower rate of growth than previous years. And I think that had to do with some of the pandemic shopping patterns that we saw at the end of the year. And then there's a note here that in terms of the paid-in equity, the $180 investments that members are making, we are currently at $1.3 million, a 2% increase over the prior year. I like to look at that one because it's a sign of investment, literally in how invested are the members in our cooperative. Moving on to employees, this graph shows a few different things. The number of co-op employees has really held steady over the past 5 years. The business is not growing like it once was, so we've sort of hit a plateau in terms of the numbers, relatively speaking. Employees earning at least the Vermont livable wage. You can see in 2020 at the year end we had 163 of the 168. This is often a matter of timing. We do have one pay level that is below the Vermont livable wage, and it's just the entry level wage that's employees hold. If they enter at that level, they're there for 3 months and then they move beyond the livable wage. And then the last measure here is the number of employees who are also co-op owners, and about 3/4, 125 of them are co-op owners. And then a note that retirement plan participation is up. We have 102 employees, or 82% of those eligible are participating in the retirement plan, and that's very gratifying because we've made that a priority over recent years. Also taking a look this year at tenure levels. How long have our employees been with us? And this breaks that down. So we have 104 employees, or 60% of all that have been with us for at least 5 years. And then you can see that we have 60 employees that have been with us for 10 years or more, and 10 who have been 20 years or more, up to 35 years is the longest anybody has worked at the co-op. And again, I find this pretty gratifying because it means that people are sticking around. They're comfortable here. They're making a career of it, which is a really great thing to see as an employer. Now shifting towards the co-op community, one of the ways we think about this is in terms of giving back, and our Co-op Cares discount is a shopping discount for members who are low income, and you can see that the amount of dollars, which is the green bars on the top graph, was higher back in 2016, but it came down sharply and has then come back up, about 39,000 last year. And then the number of people participating has grown since 2016, but came down in 2019. So interpret this to mean that we have fewer people participating, but they're participating at greater levels, which is just an interesting trend to see. In an area where we haven't done very well, I would say, is workshop attendees. So in our educational mission, 5 years ago, we had 529 workshop attendees. This past year was only 155. We saw a big drop off in 2018, and been trying to build that number back up. We had to close the program down altogether in March because of the pandemic. But there's no question that we have a challenge in terms of attracting people to these in-person workshops, and been working on plans to expand our activities so that we can reach people where they are in terms of our educational mission. Also, in terms of giving back, top graph talks about the donations and sponsorships that the co-op participates in, and you can see that's held relatively steady. Was only $38,648 in 2020. Now that was also influenced by the pandemic. In order to conserve our cash, not knowing what was going on in the spring, we limited a lot of discretionary spending, and so really pulled back on donations and sponsorships at the end of the year. We also have our Hunger Mountain Cooperative Community Fund, and the graph on the bottom shows, in the green, it shows the assets, the amount of money that's in the fund, and that has grown nearly doubled, more than doubled in the past 5 years, up to 114,000, which is great. And then the amount of grants that have been given out had dropped a little bit, but increased this past year. We'll be announcing the recipients of this year's grants at the annual meeting. Taking a look at food in a couple ways, local product sales, you can see, have been remarkably steady, somewhat a function of how much sales are growing overall, is how much of it is local. That's just about 33% of store sales, I believe is the figure, come from local, which is great. One of the reasons that's so important is because it translates into purchasing from local business. And then last year we had $7.8 million in local purchasing, doing business with 455 different Vermont vendors, which is really highlights the difference of the cooperative model and the important role I think we play in the local economy. And then in terms of organic, certified organic products, we had $8.3 million sold in organic products last year, and it was about 32% of total sales. Talking about environmental sustainability, looking at the energy that we use, we have seen a uptick in the amount of electricity used. Kilowatt hours has gone up in the past 2 years. That's related to a new heating and cooling system that we had installed at the end of fiscal 2019, so it overlaps between 2019 and 2020. And while it's more efficient, it does actually do a better job of heating and cooling, and is sort of right-sized for the building and is using more electricity as a result. So we anticipate that will level out this next year. It also may be translating into less heating in terms of gallons of propane used. So we saw a decline this last year. Combining those two, the electricity and the propane, translated to 131 tons of carbon dioxide emitted last year. That was actually a small decrease. So long-term trend that we're trying to lighten our footprint as a business. And then just some notes about reuse and reduction. We had 56 tons of organic material composted last year, 107 tons of cardboard and other recycling. 79% of our waste stream was diverted from the landfill. Okay, going to shift into a little financial report now. You can see in this slide is talking about co-op sales in the green, and you can see a slight but steady growth over time there. And then the rate of growth is the blue line. You can see 5 years ago we were at almost a 5% growth rate. That really dropped down, and but appears to be climbing again. We had one of our better years in recent times this last year at 2.6%. So what that means is that the sales in 2020 were 2.6% greater than those in 2019. There's a breakdown of our expenses. So of that 25 million in sales, 63% is going to pay for the product itself. And so the cost of goods sold. 28% is going to employee compensation. That includes wages and benefits. And then 6% is going to other operating expenses, overhead, all the various expenses it takes to run a business. We've got a small sliver for depreciation, the value of the wear and tear on our fixed assets, and then other expenses. And then the light blue sliver is our net income. And I'm happy to report that we had a good year. We had 2% net income for the first time in a while. I'll run through some of the financial highlights, just noting that this year is unusual in that the audit of the statements is not complete yet. It's in draft form. I'll explain why. But where we stand now, our best estimate is that net income was $569,312, or 2.2% of sales. That is subject to change until we finalize this audit. the patronage refund certainly will be declared on that amount of net income. The patronage refund is a portion of the net income that we can give back to member owners. The reason that we haven't determined it and the audit hasn't been finalized is because of the Paycheck Protection Act loan that was provided by the federal government back in the spring, early summer. It was $1.2 million. The intention of that loan was to maintain employment, keep employees on the payroll, keep them working. With regards to the co-op, that loan was successful. We were able to retain employment in almost every case, and as a result, we expect the vast majority of that loan will be forgiven per the rules of the loan. The question that's still to be resolved is whether the forgiven portion of the loan will be taxable, subject to federal income tax. And that has to be decided, resolved by Congress. And so we are waiting patiently to hear what the result of that is. Hopefully there will be an outcome before it's time to file taxes. But that's the holdup, and it obviously makes a big difference on the bottom line. Anyhow, moving on, we did end up the year with $2.7 million in cash, which is good. As the pandemic started, we were particularly concerned about cash, and that's why PPP loan was important to us, and limiting discretionary spending and those sorts of things. But seem to be in a relatively stable place, healthy place, especially in terms of cash. A couple key balance sheet measures that we look at. Current ratio is a measure of our liquidity or ability to meet our short-term obligations. 1.95 is a healthy level. It means that for every dollar that we owe in the near term, we have about $1.95 of liquid assets at our disposal. And then liabilities to equity ratio at 0.92. What this means is that for every dollar that we own as a cooperative, we owe about 92 cents in total liabilities. That's short-term like payroll and payables, and long-term like debt. And that is a good place to be as a grocery store for sure. Last area of measurement is cooperation. We actually consider other co-ops to be part of our community and gauge our success in part on how we're supporting and furthering cooperation. A couple ways that we look at that as our cooperative investments. And you can see that we have been increasing the amount of our assets that we're investing in other cooperatives for further development quite a bit over the past few years. So this would include direct loans to other co-ops such as City Market in Burlington, the Morrisville Food Co-op, the Brattleboro Food Co-op, and most recently the Springfield Food Co-op here in Vermont. It also includes investments in Co-op Fund of New England and other loan funds. And just good to note that these are investments. They generally provide some return on investment, but we're using our assets in a way that furthers our mission and our values. And then lastly, one of the ways we can support other co-ops is by selling their products. And last year we had $1.5 million in sales from products produced by other cooperatives such as Organic Valley or Cabot Creamery or Equal Exchange. And that was about 6% of our total sales, which is fantastic. It does not include anything that we make in-house. This is other co-ops altogether. Okay, so that is the data portion of the slideshow. I just want to give you a few comments on holiday shopping. On a lot of people's mind as we go into the busy holiday season, and of course with uptick in local COVID cases, we really want to make sure that the co-op continues to be a safe place to shop, and we think that everybody plays a role in that. So this slide talks about what the co-op is doing, some of the things that we're doing to offer the safest possible shopping experience during this holiday season. First of all, we've expanded our curbside pickup program, and that includes the number of products. We're up to over 3,000 products available. I encourage you to take a look. You can go to hungermountain.coop to see the selection these days, and also the pickup times. So we've moved to an everyday offering between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. And from the early results, it seems like we've gotten a pretty favorable response to that. Additional flexibility in pickup times is working for people, so that's great. Give us your feedback. If you don't see a product or something about the program is not working for you, please let us know. We think this is an essential part of how we're going to provide a safe holiday shopping experience. Because that time of year is so busy, we really want to make sure that people get the food that they need. But if you can do it through the curbside pickup program, it means just less pressure on the building and reduces the risk for everybody. Of course, it doesn't work for everybody all the time, so normal shopping goes on, and we will continue to limit the number of shoppers inside the store at any one time to provide the adequate spacing. We put a lot of resources into that effort, and I hope that is working for you and is appreciated. We will be expanding our hours of operation on November 9th to go to 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day, and that's just to provide a little more opportunity at either end of the day, and sort of hope to spread out some of the shopping. And then we will continue to reserve the 9 to 10 a.m. hour for our high-risk shoppers, which would include seniors and those with underlying health conditions. We're not actively monitoring that in terms of checking to see if people have that criteria. It's a request and an honor system, but I think it's an important one. One thing that we do is further restrict the number of shoppers at that time to provide even more space on the sales floor. And speaking of that, we're consciously reducing the amount of displays on the sales floor to try to limit the crowding. And typically you would see a lot more product around just to provide the amount of inventory that's needed at that time of year, but we're going to really try to limit that so that people have space to spread out. And then finally, we're going to continue to provide the hand sanitizer and masks and gloves and continue our disinfection routines so that we can keep things as safe as possible. Those are a few of the things that we're doing. There's more, but I just wanted to give you a snapshot of that. There's also things that we can all do as shoppers. And so the first thing I mentioned here is shopping online through our curbside pickup program. Really think that's important. We set a goal that we want to have 5% or more of our total sales coming through the curbside pickup program. And that's been challenging to get up to that level, but we think it's possible, and we really encourage people to give that a try. A few other strategies, and this is all summarized in our Safe Shopping Holiday Guide, which is available online now at hungermountain.coop. One of them is to stock up early on holiday favorites. So many of the things that are staples during Thanksgiving and other holidays are available now. So broth and cranberries and stuffing and some of the treats are available now and will be throughout November and December. So consider getting those things early, just reduce the need later. You can also strategically pick your shopping times. Generally speaking, there's no absolutes, but generally speaking, earlier and later in the days are better. And it's currently Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays tend to be our slower days. Certainly Wednesdays and Fridays, parts of Saturday are our busiest times to shop. Should be avoided if possible. Encourage people to use a shopping list so you can shop efficiently. Ask people to shop intentionally so that you're just moving through the store in an efficient way. Also ask that people shop alone to the extent possible. Just keep in mind that people are shopping in pairs or groups, that reduces the ability of other people to come into the store until the numbers balance out. So we just ask people to think about that. Of course, it's not always possible to shop alone, but if you can, we appreciate it. Along those lines, visiting the co-op only as often as you need to. I know a lot of people build it into their regular routine. Some folks are here daily. Some people need to be here more often. But we do actually ask you to think about it. Again, it's shopping intentionally. And then while you are here, just ask that you minimize the socializing and maximize distance while shopping. I know that's a challenging one because the co-op is a community hub and is a place to see friends and neighbors, and it's a challenging time for all of us, and just ask that if possible do that socializing outside the store. Okay, so just want to remind folks that our annual member meeting will be on Thursday, November 12th, starting at 6 p.m. It will be via a Zoom webinar, and but it's also possible to phone in, and then it will also be broadcast over Orca, local access cable. It will be important to pre-register to get the link to the Zoom and the phone-in information, so you can go to hungermountain.coop to get that information. And it's our first ever remote annual meeting, so we're putting a lot of planning and effort into it. It's going to be different. We recognize that it's inherently less interactive. We've shortened the length because it's hard to sit through these types of meetings for long amounts of times, but should still be a lot of fun, and there's going to be celebration in that, and hopefully good information for everybody. To round out that experience, we're going to be offering some additional roundtable discussions for members who want more information, have questions, want to provide comments, and those will also be remote. And the dates are here. We have Saturday, November 7th at 10 a.m., Tuesday the 10th at 6 p.m., and then Monday the 16th after the annual meeting as a wrap-up, November 16th at 6 p.m. These will be using a different platform, or GoToMeeting, and you can find those links at hungermountain.coop, or you can also call in. All this information is on the website. So if you have anything that you would like to respond to now, you're certainly welcome to do that. I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to submit a comment or a question for the annual meeting itself, you can email us annualmeeting@hungermountain.coop, and we will summarize those comments and questions and do our best to respond to as many of them as we can during the annual meeting. We'll also be taking some live questions, but if you want to get them in early, that will help. We will certainly respond to everything in time. We'll do our best to respond to as much as we can during the meeting. You can also contact me directly at 802-262-3219 or Kari B at hungermountain.coop. Love to hear from you, and I hope this has been helpful. Please give me feedback if there's a way that I could make it more useful for